Video games. You either love or hate them, or fucking both. You might have a love-hate relationship with them. Who knows? But there's one thing we could all unanimously agree on: that video games, for the most part, have just become an important part of our lives, and have just been so normalized today that it's just a part of the common media now. And with that comes lots of opinions and disagreeing and all the sorts, and heavy hitters and heavy misses for that matter. But there's one thing we can all agree on: we all have certain taste in terms of games. I have a certain taste of games. You have a certain taste of games. And that's just how the matter of it is. That's the beauty of gaming. You don't have, like, what's the word? People who will unanimously agree with it, because everything would be boring. And let's be honest here. Things with gaming overall have just gone either really forwards or backwards half the time. In terms of game quality, we are just going up and continuing to go up and up and up and more. But we're also going backwards in terms of, like, microtransactions and just how greedy these companies overall are getting. But we could all probably unanimously agree that gaming is just getting better for the whole, and more or less, it's just so hard to, like, put a top 5 or anything like that, which I'm going to be doing today, because every single game these years are just so good. Like, how do you compare to such heavy hitters like 2022 and 2023, and then games like years like 2018, which were some of the best years in gaming? Well, today, as I said prior, we're going to be going over my top 5 list. And of course, before I want to get emphasis to this. There are spoilers here. So, if there's a game you're planning on playing or anything like that, I will let you know on every single top 5 that there will be spoilers in these games. So if you're planning on playing any of these games, the moment I say the name of the game that's in my top 5, please back away, because I do not want you to get spoiled of any of these experiences. These experiences are so just amazing and should be experienced for yourself, not being spoiled by some brain-dead moron talking to his mic at 3 a.m. in the morning. But anyways, well, I'm not here to yap or anything like that, or maybe you are here to hear me yap, but that's for another day. With that being said, it's all just my opinion at the end of the day, and if you want to share your list, go on ahead. I'm intrigued to see what your guys' lists are, and I respect every and each one of your opinions, and that is just a fact. We all have different tastes, and that's what makes it just fun to talk to each other about things, because if it was all just the same, like I said earlier, everything would be boring as hell. But let's just not make this too much long of an intro. My name is Calming Wind, and here are my top 5 games of 2023. Alright, now cracking into my top 5 is going to be Jedi Survivor. Now this game was amazing. I think personally for me, this is a top 5 Star Wars game, no, top 3 for sure. I think everything that was in Fallen Order is 10 times improved upon in this game. There's just so much to this game, but I only have like a few minor complaints in the grand scheme of things, but let's get to the positives. The world is just so expansive and big compared to the first one. I love the mix of linear and non-linear, like, world and just levels. I think it's so beautifully done. Not to mention the stances are just awesome, especially like the one with the dual wield or the blaster stance, and the combat just overall improved and so much more just crisp and clean. Everything about this game is just so phenomenal. Story is great, I might add. There are some story beats that I kind of wonder where they were going with it in this, like, just the game overall, because there are some rather questionable moments that I just kind of didn't understand with what certain characters that they did, or what exactly they were playing to begin with. And that being my first complaint is Dagan Gera. Now, Dagan Gera, I like him as an antagonist. I wish we got more of him, but the problem was he was just killed off too early. Like, everything about Dagan Gera was such an interesting character, like this like old Jedi from the High Republic era of Star Wars, just frozen in this capsule and then just brought back to life in like the modern times right after Order 66 years later, and wondering what happened to the Jedi Temple and the Order and overall. It's such an intriguing concept, and seeing him rapidly descending to turning to the dark side almost immediately because of how he was betrayed after protecting the planet that he once was on, and losing just basically everyone that had betrayed him in the first place. Like, his story and premise was just so interesting. However, he was just killed off way too early, and I just wish we got more to see them. However, I do think that the plot twist of Bode was really well done, and I didn't see it coming from a mile away. I know a lot of people did, but I was one of those people who just didn't have a faintest idea, or even clue for that matter, that Bode would have been turned out to be a Jedi the entire time. Like, it was just, I did not see this coming from even like a mile away. And honestly, that review was just so well done. In his boss fight, I really enjoyed it, especially infiltrating that Imperial base and then locking the rage and just slaughtering the room full of like stormtroopers and just like you're like Kratos or something. That shit was so good, and that makes me really curious what they're going to be feeding into in terms of the next Jedi Survivor game. Because if I remember correctly, I believe the last one should be out of the bunch of the trilogy. And I'm really interested to see where Cal Kestis' character and where the story ends up leading him into the finale of the franchise. And hopefully they improve upon their mistakes. That being said, there is one more minor complaint that I do have to say, and anyone who played this game at launch can know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the performance. The performance of this game was awful. Like, for me, it wasn't that bad. It really didn't bother me overall. I didn't really have that many, like, issues overall when it comes to performance, but there were some frame rate drops, and just seeing a lot of other people's other gameplay is just rather frustrating. We should be getting games at launch that are fully complete and not getting a stupid apology script written and just ready just in case that happens every single time. We should be paying money for these games to be full and complete and not have these bugs in them at day one of launch. Of course, games are going to have bugs at them day one of launch regardless. However, performance issues should not be acceptable in this day and age, especially in terms of gaming. Like, bro, it's like when Gotham Knights had 30 FPS. Yeah, sure, it's not a big deal, but like, bro, there's no way. But jokes aside, Fallen Order was great. Jedi Survivor improves on tenfold. There's minor complaints I have about this game, and that would be my top 5 best game, or my favorite game, should I say, of this year. Where do I begin? Cracking into the number 4, and like I said, spoilers per usual, Resident Evil 4 Remake. This game was phenomenal from beginning to end. The gameplay improvements, the overall atmosphere increased, and just overall things that kind of needed to be tweaked in the original were tweaked here. And of course, there were a couple things that I do have like a small minor complaints about, but however, it's not that big of a deal, just like the things with Survivor. It's kind of minor, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal, but we'll get into that. Starting with this game. This game was just overall so good. The atmosphere was done perfectly. The story had some retouches on it, which I'm so glad, especially with the story being more involved in Luis and just overall explaining his relations with Umbrella. And let's be honest here, one thing that they fixed that we all were hoping for, anyone who's played the original, they fixed Ashley. Oh my god. Thank god. I don't want to hear Leon, help! Leon! Getting ganged on, just getting either fucking kicked and stomped on and just thrown around like a redheaded stepchild, dude. I don't want to hear that, and I'm so glad they fixed that and actually listened. Because, god, no one wants to deal with that. And the fact of the matter is they just proved in the Ashley section to just so much more about her. She's not annoying, she's just there, you know, nothing too bothersome, right? You could deal with it. Now let's get into the gameplay side of things. Now the gameplay was so improved upon. I love this, like the overall melee combat, and the pairing was such a great addition. It's actually incredible how improved upon this game was in almost every aspect, including gameplay. The combat was satisfying. The melee was just so much fun. The weaponry was just like the original and improved upon in terms of gunplay, better. And just overall, the pairing was just such a great feature. It's just so satisfying, especially to deflect like a sickle being thrown at you or something like that. It's just, the gameplay they cooked. They did such a great job. And honestly, I really wish Resident Evil 3 at the end of the day got this treatment, because Resident Evil 3 being one of the best, rather considered one of the best in terms like the OG games, just got snuffed out altogether and scrapped half the game for some shitty Resistance multiplayer game mode, which, oh, by the way, that's still stupid to this day. I don't understand, I know this is going to be a little rant here, why, I understand Capcom is trying to make something new, but just go with co-op. Co-op has always been the most successful. It's just, I don't know. It just I can't understand why they keep trying these things that just obviously do not work with the amount of times they've been doing them. And the last thing I want to touch upon overall was just the story. The story was great. The things that just been tweaked overall were mostly just for the better. Like, the story is just got some tweaks here and there. It's still the same story that it was years ago, but just with some slight improvements. And honestly, I respect that they kept the story intact from what it once was. And there are I will get into complaints here. Now, complaint number 1. Salazar was not really... I know this is a minor thing, but Salazar, the original, was so goofy that I was kind of sad that he wasn't nearly as included as he was in the original. Like, honestly. I genuinely enjoyed his presence for how stupid he was. Just a funny, overall charming little minor antagonist. Now, getting into a second complaint that I have. I feel like this game lost its charm. Like, that it once originally had. Like, of course, there are some scenes that they kept, like the, where's everybody going? Bingo. Like, that shit. They kept some scenes like that in there, but overall, it just doesn't have that corniness that gave Resident Evil the magic, not really the magic per se, but that charm it once had. But it's overall, like I said, it's not a big complaint. I just kind of wish they would have improved upon it a little bit, but it's whatever. It's not really that big of a deal. I overall enjoyed the game, and I will say one thing, of course, in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't matter, but I kind of wish they kept some of the sections they cut out, because I was really looking forward to seeing those in the remake, but overall, it's not really much of a big deal. The game overall was just stellar, and I have basically really no complaints, and the ones that are there are very minor. Overall, Resident Evil 4, great game, recommend you try it out, especially if you're a fan of survival horror, and that is my 4th top favorite game of this year. My top 3, oh boy. I know how people have a big distaste for this game right now, especially after the Game Awards, but for me, number 3 is easily Spider-Man 2. This game was great, just good, simplistic fun. I enjoyed every bit of it. The story was great. The gameplay was just so heavily improved upon with the symbiote, the fast travel, the traversing system was just so great, and just the added overall sections that were originally there was such a great feature. It makes, like, I couldn't imagine the new traversal features without that section that they added in. Like, could you imagine if it was still the 2018 Miles Morales version? If you had the fast travel now, like, the traversal that we have now in Spider-Man 2, you would be going across the map so quickly. You would, it wouldn't even, of course, you're going to go across the map quickly regardless. However, you would go by even more faster. And that's crazy to think about. But, just, it's just a great game. It's just good, fun, simplistic time. And honestly, that's what games should be. Like, it should just be good, simplistic fun. However, there are some small minor complaints that I have about this game, and one being the way Venom was done. Now, Venom in this game was great. Like, don't get me wrong, he was amazing. However, I feel like a lot of the charm that he had, like, especially like in the Venom movies, just for example, it was just kind of gone. Maybe because Harry was like the main host of the symbiote, or maybe because Eddie Brock wasn't there, but I don't know, I just feel like Venom just didn't have as much, you know, charm as he does in other properties. And another thing I want to get into about this game is just the replay value at the end. There's nothing to do after you beat the game. Once you do everything, there's just nothing to do. And I'm gonna be honest here, New Game Plus should be available at launch. It just should. I'm sorry, this should just be standards by now. We shouldn't have to wait longer for New Game Plus. These should be integral features, not just, you know, things that are added later on for content. Like, this should be just the standard at this point. But overall, everything was just done well. The story was great. Gameplay was great. I will say it wasn't as emotional as 2018, because the 2018 just had such a great story with the Sinister Six and Doc Ock's, you know, dynamic with Peter. But Harry's was good with Peter as well. But I think just Doc Ock's was a little bit better, personally. Overall, I'm really excited to just get into the DLC and see what they have in store for us, and hopefully improve upon things in Spider-Man 2 that need to be there. Overall, like Carnage and just the rest, and the accumulation of the Spider-Verse DLC. And hopefully, just hopefully, with the Venom spin-off game, it'll add in Eddie Brock to the Insomniac Spider-Man universe, and we can kind of get that Venom we're more or less accustomed to in terms of the media that he's, portrayed in. But overall, Spider-Man 2, great game. It just, if you haven't tried it, wait for it to go on a deal. I'd recommend more or less. It's worth the $70, but just wait for it to go on a deal and try it out. It is just good, simplistic fun. I loved every bit of it, but not exactly my top 2. But that is my top 3rd favorite game of this year. Now, getting into my number 2 spot, which this just came out of storm out of nowhere. I had, of course, been keeping my eye on this game ever since the first real trailer, but it just took the Souls community by storm, and everyone just was enjoying it. It's such a unique property, and that property is Lies of P. This game is great. This game is such a unique concept on Pinocchio and just overall Souls. It's a great game. The world's intriguing. The premise is just interesting and full of mystery. It's great. The world building is just phenomenal. The combat is great and unique to where it stands out on its own. And the character design and overall design of everything else in the world just stands out. And each part is unique to its own. And just sometimes it nails the atmosphere so well. It's just done so extraordinarily perfect. It's a mixture of just wonder, mysterious, and creepy. And that's what I love about this. Now, let's get into the gameplay and everything else. The gameplay, great. The weapons with their own unique abilities, it's such a awesome take to where every weapon is fresh. And the arm abilities, great. Reminds me of the arms in Sekiro, which this game is very similar to Sekiro. I would say this game's like gameplay of Sekiro, but atmosphere and just overall mood aesthetic of Bloodborne. It's just a perfect mix. Everything just about this game is just pure magic. I cannot begin to explain to you just how well crafted of a game this is. And I'm so excited for the sequel whenever, and the DLCs whenever that does drop. And the story is an interesting premise of just Pinocchio trying to find out why the frenzied puppets are taking over the land and who's actually behind it and yada yada yada. You basically get the gist of it, and you'll discover more about the story of Lies of P the more you go into it, of course. But it's overall it's such an interesting concept for a story. Now, the soundtrack I think is great. I love the soundtrack. Pinocchio is an interesting protagonist, and I love his design. It's just so good. Everything about this game is just unique and stands out and just is such an overall great original property. And how could I forget one of the most important things, the bosses. The bosses in this game will whip your ass, but God, are they so much fun to go through every single one of them. Especially one boss in particular, which I'm not going to name for spoiler reasons, obviously, but I'll just say his codename's the King of Puppets. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That fight was great. Everything about that, the atmosphere of the fight, just how intense it got in the final phases, and how hard overall it was between those two phases, was just excellent. Just so good, especially the foreshadowing in each of the events that when you're progressing throughout the game that just go forward, especially when you're going to the nearing final section of the game. Overall, this game is just, I'm so glad it got the fame that it deserved. Everything about this game is just such a blast. Gameplay is unique, the story is intriguing, the bosses are amazing, the soundtrack is just stellar, and overall, one of the most unique games I've ever played, right next to BioShock. And that would be my second favorite game of the year. Alright, if you know me, you're gonna guaranteed know what my game of the year is, which, of course, some people who watch my channel, I know personally, and they're gonna know exactly what I'm about to say here. My game of the year is Final Fantasy 16. I said it. I don't care. Yeah, suck my dick, Final Fantasy fans. I have an opinion, and I don't care if this isn't a true Final Fantasy game. I don't care. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. What is a true Final Fantasy game in that, and in your opinion, if this one isn't? It just doesn't make any sense. But, besides that little rant, this game, oh my god, this game was like it was made for me. Action, crazy, just like Devil May Cry, over the top, fun, and simplistic. I think this, in my opinion, is better than Devil May Cry combat for a couple reasons. One, the gameplay is just simplified to where you don't have to break your hands, and it's just overall just more straightforward than Devil May Cry. And don't let this like distract you from the fact that Devil May Cry is like a great game, because Devil May Cry is an amazing game, and the combat is great, and it deserves more recognition. The only reason why I bring this up is because they're made by the same person who made DMC, and he says that this is crowning achievement, and I completely agree. This game is amazing in terms of combat, and it's just simplified, over the top, great fun. Now let's get into the story. This story is so good, and there's only one complaint two complaints I have about this game. The story is great, interesting, has compelling characters, and it tugs on your heartstrings. It is such a great game. Emotional, interesting, it has a great simplistic premise that most people will be able to understand about this game. Now, let's get into my two minor complaints about the story. One, Ultima was a mediocre antagonist. He was alright, he was whatever, but anyone who plays the game, or has played the game, I think Barnabas should have been the main antagonist. He is just a mysterious villain done right, and he is just overall 10 times better than Ultima. He is just perfect. A perfect, great, mysterious villain, and just a mysterious character done right. Like, everything about him, to his powers, to design, Odin is a badass design. The powers are great, so reminiscent of Virgil. I'm not even going to try to hide it. It's just so cool. That's my first complaint. And the second complaint is the pacing and the story is a little bit off, but nothing too crazy. And if anyone's played the game, we're talking about the Metadol ship section. That shit was so boring. I felt like it was so pointless to include the ship section. Like, you could have just done that in the background while you kind of got on with a more important story beat instead of just forming a stupid ship. I'm playing this game to do like an intriguing story and over-the-top battles, not fucking play Bob the Builder and fucking construct a ship in 0.2 seconds like I'm Amish or something. But jokes aside, other than that, that's my only two complaints. Now, let me get to the two best parts about this game, in my opinion. The music and the boss fights. The music is just superb. It makes me levitate. The music in this game is magical. Anyone who's listened to the soundtrack is just knows how good it is. Hold up, take a listen to this shit. Like, that shit is fire. It's so good. It's uplifting, and the orchestra, just a battle, just makes you want to fight even more. It is a great soundtrack, as typically Final Fantasy soundtracks are. And finally, the last point I'm going to say before I end the video, the boss fights are the best boss fights in gaming, hands down. I don't care what anyone says. The only game that comes close in terms of boss fights is Metal Gear Rising. Other than that, this game has the most jaw-dropping, over-the-top visual spectacle of boss fights. And not to mention some of the story aspects behind them, it's just great on top of what's already there. The boss fights will forever be my favorite part about this game. It's just written, like, the game just has me written all over. It's so good. The boss fights will forever hold a special place in my heart. Even now, thinking about it, it gives me chills. If you have not played Final Fantasy 16, I highly recommend you go pick it up. You can get it on a deal right now, too. So I recommend you go play it and try it for yourself. One of the best boss fights, some of the best fights in gaming, if not the best. I love you, Bahamut. I love you, Dion. Shout out to you, Dion, my twink. But overall, Final Fantasy 16 is my game of the year. It fills up so many bits of taste that I've been looking for in a game. It is overall just my game of the year. It is just perfect for me. Hey guys, this is the end of the video, but I just wanted to say thank you guys for watching, and I appreciate, even if it's just a view or anything else. You don't have to like or comment on anything, but a like would be much appreciated, or hell, even a comment. Either or, really. It doesn't matter. But I wanted to just thank you over guys for the support that I've had this last month, and I wanted to let you guys know that videos are becoming a little bit slow here, but I do have a Outlast video planned for the end of this month, and I just wanted to let you guys know. So stay tuned, and thank you guys for watching.